Coming to you live from Radio Cayman Studio.
For the record.
For the record. Hear from your government officials, independents, and the opposition on issues that matter to you. For the record. Engage in an open dialogue between residents and lawmakers.
For the record.
For the record. Informative, impartial, insightful.
This is your talk show.
1-800-534-8255. Your calls, your input. This is For the Record. And now, your host, Art Connor.
And good morning. Welcome to For the Record. Catherine Tyson, I'm sitting in for Mr. Art Connor this morning. And winding up the week on a beautiful Friday morning. I hope everybody is feeling well and doing okay today. This is the end of the week. You know what that means. TGIF, and getting ready to unwind and look forward to a beautiful weekend. The weather is lovely. Find your friends, find your family, and spend some good quality time because life is just far too short. I hope Mr. Connor enjoyed his vacation, and he'll be back with you on Monday. So I've enjoyed my time. Thank you all so much for joining in, all of the callers. Please, today, no different, 1-800-534-8255. We want to hear what's on your mind this morning. I am joined in the studio by the Leader of the Opposition, the Honorable McKeeva Bush. Good morning, Mr. Bush.
Good morning. Thank you for allowing me to be here.
Well, thank you for being here, as well as Mr. Ralston Anglin. Good morning, Mr. Ralston.
Good morning, Catherine.
No, you started off right. It's okay. Okay, so I always like, when I am joined by these gentlemen, because that means that it makes my job that much easier. I don't have to find anything to say. I just have to say, go.
You don't find anything to say?
No, I don't.
Do you know that you talk a lot on this show?
I do.
Of course.
I have to also, right? But at least I don't have to find things to say. I can then, feed off of what you all are saying.
Oh, okay then. All right. I see what you're saying.
What are you saying? I talk too much on the show? That's because I am talking. Come on. All right, we'll talk about that during the commercial. I don't know if that was a little message, but Mr. Bush, you and I always spar anytime we see each other, so no different when we're on the air. So this morning, lots going on, big headlines that you wanted to touch on. Ex-Governor Taylor served with writ. You want to talk just a little bit about that, just to bring us on today?
Listen, they were bad people, dirty people. As we say, Cayman say, whatless people. Okay. But thank God that we have a justice system, that the rule of law still operates in our honorable courts. I'm not going to talk much about it, but people have gone back just a minute. What it means? It means that they were after me, they set it up, and it was vindictive and cost me tremendously in my two businesses, which one I lost, the other one is nearly shut down. They cost me in people, business-wise, loss of business. My wife is still suffering from that episode and the things that you'll never forget. I put things behind me. That's my life. I like to put things behind and move forward. But of course, we had to sue them because what I believe is besides the loss financially, which is it's countless. You can't count it in terms of dollars, but and that's something for the court to decide. But when your family is affected, and mine was and still is, then that's another matter. But the one big thing that I got out of all of that was that, look, if they did this to me, who was the premier duly elected, no questions about whether we were duly and honestly elected, what they did was undemocratic. And I said, look, if they come after me, then what hope anybody else got later on?
Right.
It could be anybody they come after, and if they got away with it, and they did that, and they thought they would get away with it. You never know what he'd done, but some of it got out into the open because of the emails. I knew what they were doing, and I was telling people so, but people just thought, because, of course, we had an opposition who was blaming us and pointing at everything, and the people now know about them too. I am convinced of that, and we know that the public knows, and they know the public knows, and so they're being very much more devious than they ever been, but they're not going to get away with it. I've read and seen what the public of this country is doing and saying. He tried to run, basically, as I said, he tried to run, claiming that we couldn't serve them as a British diplomat. And
this was an after the fact situation. So this is a civil suit we're talking
yeah,
about. Right.
yeah. This is all other things. The court proved them wrong.
Okay, which I want to ask something about that. But
the court proved them wrong, and I never had to say a word. Their own witnesses came and testified. Their own witnesses that showed that I wasn't doing anything wrong.
Okay, so but before we even get to the civil suit, let me ask you, in instances like that where the court proved them wrong and their claims were unfounded, isn't there some sort of system or thing that could replace what was taken from you? Like, in other words, it was because of that why you, if I'm not mistaken, it was because of that why you actually were no longer the premier. Is that correct?
Oh yeah.
That's
why it was orchestrated.
Exactly, but
and the lies told to my colleagues.
But if it's found out that in fact those things were not true, and you were vindicated, then shouldn't there, I mean, sensibly it would make sense, shouldn't there be some sort of thing that says, you know what, we wronged this man, he in fact was stripped of this title, and that was wrong.
They leave it, and that's and you talking about something that is, the public, yeah, a lot of people have asked the same question.
I would think so.
But no, you got to do what I'm doing. You got to go back to the courts now to say, this is where I was wrong. This is what this cost me.
Okay.
The cost of money-wise, cost in reputational damage, cost in health damage. My business I lost business. I lost colleagues.
Right.
One of my longest serving employees picked up and left me after 20 years being working with me.
Right.
And so
civilly and financially and all of that, you'll get,
the court, that's what we're applying to the court for. It's still left up to the court.
However, I'm speaking about the legalities of it, and you being stripped of this position. No. Does that mean now that
in other countries it might have been, because I'm sure that they expected that the public was going to rise up, and I saw all their forces aimed at that. Policemen wise, in my district, there's where I live, there's, let's say, three entrances to where I live. Not my house I'm talking about the whole general area.
The area.
And they had 7 police parked there. 7.
Okay.
That day. We had a worship, and that was not by, and they left shortly afterwards. That was not that day. That afternoon. That was not just coincidence. All this was done because they expected the public of this country to rise up. That's what they thought that and of course that's how they have painted me. They have painted me to make me look like I'm the worst person, and as they did in the court, they tried to put together evidence to make me look like I was doing things that I never did.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And so that's how Taylor operated. He must pay, because the public needs to know. I didn't go on that stand, but my stuff will come out of all that he did.
Okay.
The shenanigans he went on, him, and not only him but his son in this country.
Okay.
And they know that he knew that I knew, And they tried me to get to do certain things, and I would not do it. And there was one, like hiring his friend, that he got away with. And the day that I told Ken Jefferson, look, that man, he's no good to us. $5,000 a month for what? Because he's Duncan Terry, the governor's friend. But it stops. No more contract. And at that day, and Ralston them know, he came in that cabinet, and he cursed me. He cursed me an SOB. That's what he done.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
He walked out, though, you know.
Okay.
Yeah, he walked out.
We're going to take a quick break, but we'll be back
But he
with more.
all this is saying, all this, and so I want to say to people, all this is saying is that he must answer.
Absolutely.
Or settle, one of the two.
All right. We're going to come back and finish up that discussion. We'll take a quick break. We'll be back with more For the Record. And welcome back to For the Record. Catherine Tyson, I'm sitting in for Mr. Connor this morning, and I'm joined by the Leader of Opposition, the Honorable Makiva Bush, as well as Mr. Ralston Anglin. Before the break, we were talking about the conspiracy lawsuit, basically, the civil lawsuit that is now, Mr. Bush, you're behind that for the whole, as you say, the dishonesty and the destruction of your reputation.
Maliciousness that went on.
And the loss of so many areas of your life, not just financial, but reputational as well as professional and your businesses and everything. So how do you envision this? I mean, is it going to be a long process?
I can't go through, well, I would hope to be a short process, but it dragged out already because he was running from being served. That's what this is all about. Mm-hmm. He was running from being served.
Okay.
Because he was a diplomat.
Right.
And so the court said, no, he must be served. And then they appealed that, and that took a long time to go. Then July, it went to court.
Okay.
And it took from July till now for the Honorable Court to make its judgment or pass its judgment. And so they passed on the judgment. He must be served.
Okay.
What we done was legal, and what we're doing is legal.
Right.
Right. So that was a win.
That's basically, yeah.
No,
a big one.
Not only is it a win, but it's a significant ruling, because typically people who take up any post that is deemed a diplomatic type post are giving certain immunities around what happens when they are in executing what they say are the duties of their office. Obviously, what the court has done here is that the court has pierced that diplomatic immunity, that typical diplomatic immunity rule, and said, no, you now have to come in a civil matter and answer for your role in this particular affair.
Right.
Anyway, at Monday night's meeting, I talked about the kind of new world that we are being ushered into as a country, and the kind of failings in the islands, and particularly so in investment, and what has happened. And people have failed to see that over a period of time. They have, when we took office, we were going into that slump, the big crash in the United States, and in fact the world seemed like had taken effect, and that had begun to happen. At least I thought it was beginning to happen from 2007, and we did certain things as an opposition then, but the government didn't listen to us, and in fact I was told not on the kindest of mornings would they listen to us. That's what I was told in the Legislative Assembly.
Okay.
And of course, right after that, Lehman Brothers in the States fell. And it was obvious that the PPM didn't have a plan. They didn't have a plan. Their plan, and unfortunately for these islands, the PPM's plan, as always, while they put out a big manifesto talking about what they can do, this thing and next thing, they never talks about how they can get the money.
Right.
Because they were used to doing one thing.
Okay.
And that was to borrow. That's what they were. That's how they operated. Borrow and spend. And so when we took over, my thing is we have to create business. We had lost a lot of business. Big companies had gone, and so what happens is that secretaries to those managers, when managers go from here. In particularly so in the finance industry, you probably lose 2 secretaries and probably 2 middle administrators of some kind. At least 3, if not 4.
And the professional support staff like accountants.
Yeah. So you lose. It's a lot of unemployment that goes. At one point, there was a study done that says there was 13 jobs lost to one manager going. 13 jobs.
Okay.
And people don't realize. We sit here and we complain that we're not getting work. But the kind of economy, because we don't have, and I'm not an economist, okay? I'm a very practical person, common sense person, and approach to things. But it's obvious that when we start to lose business, we lose everything else because we don't create any business. Everything that comes in. As much as we want to get up and holler, and some people do it, and shout at me too, to tell me, that the Caymanians got to be first. We have to be first. No two ways about that. They don't need to shout at anybody about that. The fact is, how do we do it and keep us going? Because over the years, that's all we had was investors coming in, and we balancing what they do. If they come in, they rented a house or apartments. So you built apartments and you rented them, and that was an investment for you. They bought cars. So those are people that bought. And I'm talking about it from the simplest point. It is a trickle down economy that we have because we do not have any kind of exports. We have no kind of raw material to develop except a bit of farming. If we had to sit down and depend on that, you know the kind of poverty that we would have had in this country? No, we took the other way around, and I call it add-on. You come, I allow you to come, I make you feel at home, you spend your money, I make money. All around.
Right.
All around. And that's the simplest way to put it. But here, we are now going, there's a huge nationalistic feeling that we are not getting. No matter the amount of work permits, okay? Let's say that can be reduced, but government has to find ways and means of employing Caymanians in all of it, while allowing the people to come in to make money, while allowing the investors, while we create a climate that they are happy in, that they can bring their family in. Government then has to produce a policy or policies or ways and means, if you want to put it that way, so that our people benefit, so that you can drive a Mercedes-Benz, so that you can make your apartments, so that you can live and move and have our being as we have been doing. Right. But that's beginning to begun to fade. As I said, from 2007, nobody was seeing it, except the government and the PPM were creating more and more loans, more and more buildings, and we just did not have the money. That's why we went into a tailspin and got in the mess that we got into. So what basically that I am saying is we must nurture and foster investment coming in, and we must nurture and foster our entrepreneurs, local people, not just in innovations as the new world is coming. I'm talking about information technology, medical tourism, medical development here, because those are things that we can do in fields like product design and scientific advancement. And just that thing that the college a couple of nights ago or a couple of days ago shows us what is possible with robots.
Right.
Right? We can talk.
We have lots to talk about, definitely.
Yeah, we can talk to the world sensibly, and we must talk to the world. It costs me for traveling, but you must talk to the world, and you can't do it from here.
We have to.
We got to go where they are.
Of course. Talk
to them and make them feel comfortable and look at me, not just a damn picture. Sorry, a picture.
Okay.
Or a photo, but they must sit down and have a feel for what we are doing by what I am saying.
Right.
So we don't talk just amongst ourselves. We find ways, as I said, to shine the spotlight on our achievements and our ambition to start companies or investors changing the way they think about the Cayman Islands.
Well, we have lots to talk about when we get back. We're going to take a break, Mr. Bush. You will stay with me, Mr. Ralston Anglin, and the Leader of Opposition, the Honorable Makiba Bush, is with me. So stay tuned. We'll be back after our news break and more talk on For the Record. And welcome back to For the Record. Catherine Tyson, I'm sitting in for Mr. Connor this morning, and sitting with the Leader of the Opposition. You can hear him in the background as he's opposing. The Leader of the Opposition, Mr. Makiba Bush. And I'm glad we're back from commercial because he was really kind of pounding on me during the commercial a little bit. And joined by Mr. Ralston, who was helping him. I wasn't Kathy during the commercial. What happened there? Gentlemen, we're back. Let's talk.
Absolutely. There's lots to talk about, Catherine. And as Mr. Bush was saying before the break, there is a lot of history to the number of issues that we face, and sometimes we forget the history. But if we talk about some of the latest and most recent happenings, it was quite interesting last night to listen to the town hall styled meeting that was held in regards to the legal practitioners bill, and I certainly feel obliged to correct some of the fallacies that were laid down, and they're serious fallacies. The first one is that the bill, people have criticized the bill because in the bill it is calling for entities in Cayman who may not have more than 60% Caymanians as shareholders to be exempted from the local company control law. Minister Wayne Panton made the point that no one should be alarmed and no one should be concerned because the accountants are treated the same way. Well, I can tell the country and I can tell Minister Panton that there's no way in the public accountants law that accountants and accounting firms are exempted from the local company control law. If an accounting firm wants to be a company, wants to form as a company, and if that company does not have more than 60% Caymanian participation, they'd have to go apply to the Trade and Business Licensing Board, justify why they're applying for a local company control law, and be subjected to a decision from that body. He made the point, then he went on to make another false statement, talking and using, and he said he thinks there's one of the big four firms now that accessed this particular accessed a local company control license and the way in which they went about it. But I'm not going to get into those specifics. What is most important at this point is the fact that it is absolutely repugnant to have a piece of legislation that tells this country that a law firm should be exempt from the local company control law. In any profession that this happens, and in accounting, for example, if a firm decides to form as a company, it not only has to go get the license, but that license has a duration. The duration that's on that license for a reason. Suppose the circumstances, let's just say the company gets a 5 or a 10-year license. If circumstances changing during that time, then it may not be appropriate to approve it in the future. And that's the reason it's not in the public accountants law. And therefore, that's the reason it should not be in the legal practitioners bill. There should be no profession that is above that standard of having to prove why you should obtain a local company control license. Mm-hmm. He made the point that across all professions and all types of businesses, actually, if you form a partnership, and a partnership, of course, has a lot more risk in it because of the personal liability, and hence the reason why people are not going to be willing to go down that road in a lot of instances, other than professional services typically. But if you do organize yourself as a partnership, a general partnership, yes, you're already exempted from the LCCL regime. You don't have to go get an LCCL if you're a partnership. And that's why you do have currently in Cayman law firms who do have more than 60% Cayman ownership that is allowed because they're not a company. So the point is, I don't believe you should give them access to forming as a company without going through and being subjected to the regime. Okay. That regime is in place for a very, very good reason in this country, right? The second point that he raised was one that again showed a complete misunderstanding of financial services on his part. A key part of the financial services industry, the two key gatekeepers are the accountants and lawyers. Accountants set up the deals. Lawyers set up and organize the deals. Accountants audit what's happening on an ongoing basis. Two key service providers in the industry. And he made the point saying that of the 900 plus people who are registered in Cayman as accountants, only 100 and something are Caymanian. But on the law court's roll, of the 600 and something lawyers, there's 200 plus Caymanians.
Right.
I.e., the percentage of Caymanians in their profession he was trying to infer was more. Whilst he did have to quickly acknowledge, yes, but the accounting profession has done a much better job at Caymanians having access to partnership opportunities, becoming partners and becoming equity partners in their firms, right? Now, there's two fundamental issues with his analysis. One, he did not acknowledge that there are dozens and dozens, I don't know the number, of Caymanian accountants who are not registered with SIPA, right? Why aren't they registered? SIPA is typically for people who are going to be in the practicing business now of public accounting. You definitively need to be a member of SIPA, and you definitively need to organize yourself in that way. But you got a lot of Caymanians, for example, who are CFOs, chief financial officers, or financial controllers of a company, who at this point in their career, they just have a job and they're not out there and they're not registered because for whatever reason they don't see a need to. And there absolutely is no need to. So not only did he throw out a number that is absolutely wrong, he then repeated it a number of times in the meeting trying to make a point. What he didn't cover is he should have then taken a step back if he wanted to compare apples. First of all, he should have acknowledged and known that there's a lot of accountants that's not registered. But he should have then said, but how many lawyers are outside Cayman at present practicing Cayman law? Because that's the real percentage that you need to apply to the number of Caymanian lawyers. If there's 200 Caymanian lawyers and 600 are on our law roll, what if there's another 600 outside of Cayman practicing Cayman law?
Right.
Then in reality, it's 200 out of a total of 1,200 people. So this bill is of fundamental importance. This bill and the way in which it has the outsourcing model and the ability to be an affiliate firm and the ability to practice Cayman law outside our jurisdiction is important long term, not just for their profession, but for the financial services industry, which everybody acknowledges already contributes more than 50% to government coffers.
So I'm a little confused because there is so many, so many just clearly opposing views on this bill and some of the others as well. But this one in particular, just this week alone, I discussed it on the air with 3 different people, and I'm kind of confused, I think, as maybe some of the general public, as to whether or not it is good for us, it's good for our lawyers, because the local lawyers that I've heard from as well, on Wednesday we spoke with Steve McField, who pointed out why it's not a good idea per se, and things need to be looked at, because the representation of actual Cayman lawyers, as you just pointed out, is not in truth then, because the body that's reporting it does not have enough representation of Caymanian lawyers. I got an email this week from a prominent Caymanian lawyer who says that they are treated differently and this is not going to work for them. So what is, I would expect if it is good for us and it's good for the Caymanian lawyers, that they should understand that. And so what the contention is, I'm not clear about. So have you been hearing the opposing feelings about why it's not a good idea as well?
Well, I mean, Mr. Bush made a statement on behalf of the opposition last week, and our view is that there's about 5 to 10 issues that need to be ironed out, that need to be dealt with before this bill should be passed.
Okay.
I believe that there's no doubt that we have to come up with a modernized piece of legislation. There is no doubt, in my opinion, that we have to have a regime that does allow for the practice of Cayman law outside of Cayman. I've heard the view about not having it. Big picture in financial services, because we're not talking now about somebody being able to go to the court, be in some other country and be able to talk about anything other than financial services legislation, which are products that we sell.
Right.
So to break it down quite simply, Catherine, this is an issue of should someone in London be able to sell a Cayman product, or do we restrict them from selling a Cayman product and run the risk that they then only sell BVI or Bermuda products? So on that point, I'm not in agreement with some of the people who are opposing, but I'm in agreement with them certainly that the model that they have for outsourcing is wrong, and in long term, it will incentivize more business being outside Cayman than in Cayman, in my opinion. The whole issue of LCCL exemption is wrong. Shouldn't be in this piece of legislation. If a law firm wants to be a company, they should have to go through the scrutiny, and they should get a license that is limited in length and be assessed every time it's up for renewal. I don't believe also that how they have the structure of trying to put import immigration regime into the legislation is right. I don't see where that's necessary at all. That's already a system that's broken and it isn't being policed, and government is not going to be capable of policing it. I think they've missed the boat on what should be the obligation on large firms in regards to seeking out highly talented Caymanian students, sending them overseas to the very best universities and law schools and getting that exposure. The biggest difference, people have asked me all the time, Ralston, why is it that the accounting profession, you've seen all this success and you don't see the equal success in the law practice? And that's really, in my opinion, a key part of the root cause. Accounting firms right now have to go out and they seek out. I can remember myself, they came to the sixth form college, sought me out and gave me a scholarship.
Okay. All right, great. We'll be back with more. Please stay tuned for the record. And welcome back to For the Record. Catherine Tyson, I'm sitting in for Mr. Art Connor this morning, and sitting with the Leader of the Opposition, Mr. McKeeva Bush, as well as Ralston Anglin. If you've just joined us, we'd love to hear what's on your mind. 1-800-534-8255. Any questions or thoughts this morning? Ralston, before we went to the break, we were basically talking about the different sides, I guess, that we're looking at this legal practitioners bill, as well as other ones, you know, so it just takes for so much more clarification and discussion so that people can really understand.
Yeah, Ralston can get into it, but before that, just on a break, the PPM comes back on with their paid advertisements, but they're spending some money on advertisements. They must be weak. Anyway, yeah, they're talking about all the things that they got the airport going on, and this what they claim more money is being spent. Yet more money is being spent. If more money is being spent for social purposes, then it means that something is wrong because the people are not getting, then the people have to depend on government. So since the PPM, there's more people have lost their businesses. Since the PPM is in power, more people have lost their houses. Since the PPM is in power, more vehicles have been lost, people's vehicles. And since the PPM, there's been more unemployment in this country. And the UK controlled the budget because in the PPM time, they borrowed over 400 million in 4 years, 2005, 2009. And in 4 years, they created a deficit at the end of the day of $80 million. And the surplus that they have, we created the fees. So what did they do?
So
Tell me what is progressive about that.
So I'm confused then, because on the one
Don't
hand,
be confused.
yeah, you need to clear it up, right? On the one hand, we speak to the financial minister, financial services minister, and we say, how the economy is looking, how unemployment is looking, how the numbers are looking, how the surplus is looking, and then you would tell us another story. I think that the Cayman people deserve to know what the real story is, and so everybody says this is how it looks.
But people don't remember. Where did people live between 2005 and 2009?
Right,
They live in Cayman.
and sometimes it takes people takes you to remind people.
But that's what I'm doing. I'm reminding them, Catherine, that is the situation.
What is our current situation?
That is the situation. There's more people have lost their homes. Homes have been taken away since the PPM going on at any other time in our history. More businesses have been lost. More vehicles have the bank have confiscated. Let's put it this way, more vehicles, and there's been more unemployment.
And so all of those things, obviously the unemployment would be the things, I think they're all kind of connected, right? Ralston, you were talking about during the break. If there is unemployment, then there is no money coming into the home, and therefore you're losing these things. Is that the direct connection that we're talking about? Just the economy, the change?
Yeah, they say the economy is so good, but something is radically wrong if the economy is so good. If we got surplus and all these things has happened, they haven't put a program in place to try to help anybody.
Right, and let's use a classic one. Mr. Bush is taking a motion to the House right now. Catherine, as we know, we do not have any form of holistic program for anyone who falls out of a job in this country. You go down to the NWDA and register, and you hope for the best, and then you hustle on your own and hope for the best. One of the key things that causes so much stress and anxiety is the fact that you're no longer covered under health insurance. Your children are no longer covered. Mm-hmm. And again, that's one of the things that's in this motion that Mr. Bush and Captain Eugene are bringing to the Legislative Assembly, is trying to force the government's hand to create a program that as soon as you get registered at NWDA, that there's actually a policy at Synaco that underpins you, that you get enrolled in, so that you don't fall without health insurance. Because what happens if you have a heart attack during that time? Government is going to cover you anyway. Let's at least get it that it is a systematic program for all of our people during that very difficult time.
I can tell you another issue too, though, and speaking of the NWDA and just looking for work overall. Mm-hmm. If you look in, I'm looking in the newspaper right now, the Friday's paper. You look in the classified sections, I can tell you, because of my association with the newspaper of recent months, that most of these ads are just work permit renewal ads that they have to run. So that has to be a direct connection. When we talk about, bringing business in, raising the economy, that's great. But at the same time, when you're sent out for work, a lot of times, and I worked at the NWDA for a few months as well before I actually left the government. And so that was one of my frustrations, is that you're sending people out to jobs that they have no chance at getting because it's just going through the system. So when we say that we're bringing more businesses in and we want to grow our economy, there's that almost catch-22 in the sense that how do we control or put some type of controls in place that these jobs will actually be available for Caymanians. So, there's two sides to look at that. And
absolutely,
at the
Catherine.
End of it's the Caymanian people.
And that's one of the reasons why when we were in government, we had started the program and we'd actually done some research. And if I remember correctly, we had one generic evaluation tool and then one that was more specific by industry. And those tools need to be not only rolled out but fully implemented so that the job placement officers can do a much better job at sending appropriate people out there to to work sites, because there's a double-edged sword to this, and it causes so much confusion out there. But let's deal with the central point that you raised. The central point that you raised is that, firstly, the whole issue of how advertisements are done needs to be amended. There cannot be. We need to ban specific job ads. So in other words, to your point, you see a job that says they want an administrator, and they have to have a minimum of 10 years experience. But when you look at the job, you're saying to yourself, this person doesn't need 10 years experience. And you know that the 10-year experience is tied to someone that is specifically holding a post. So those job ads simply need to be banned.
Right.
Plain and simple.
And
they need to be banned.
I'm actually looking at one right now.
They need to be banned.
That's clearly
and they
for an
should
individual.
not be allowed at that point, because no job advertisement should be specific. It should be generic to the post and the qualifications and skills needed for that post.
The classifieds are filled with those types of ads,
and for too
I'm
long
sure
it's been going
of
on.
that. And so those are things that we have to be looking at.
The next administration
as well.
has to ban it, plain and simple, and put a heavy fine regime in place for anyone who advertises like that. The other piece that is important is overseas ads. You will have seen floating around social media where persons who are about to launch a business in Cayman
are looking for specific
are
nationalities.
advertising overseas for specific nationalities in specific countries.
Right.
And again, when those are found out, we need to have a regime put in place, plain and simple, that they're called in and they're fined. Plain and simple. There needs to be a heavy fine to disincentivize that sort of behavior that has become way too prevalent, in particular in the service and trades industry. So let's make it clear what we're talking about here, because sometimes we kind of just throw everybody in, and we kind of throw every employer in, and you feel like you're throwing every employer under the bus. We're really talking about the service and trades industry, that this has been a huge abuse for way too long, and it needs to just stop, plain and simple.
I mean, so in other words, too, there's that balance, right? So the balance of luring more businesses and in Cayman.
We agree with the balance, and that's
so
what the next administration needs to do is ensure that we are on side and we're putting a regime in place that is not only going to support people when they're out of a job and support school leavers, but actually match them up with jobs. I've covered on this show and in other places many times what we should be doing with scholarship students to better match them up. So that whole regime needs to be absolutely reworked.
And Ralston, you're a former Minister of Education, which employment fell under you as well. When you see construction jobs at $5 an hour, $6 an hour for construction workers, then you have to know something wrong is going on. Okay, so it's a lot of things that you probably have to be looking at all at once, because they're all kind of interconnected. If somebody does get a job as a construction worker paying $5-6 an hour, they're not going to be able to pay a mortgage anyway. So we really do have to look at, I mean, normally construction was one of the great industries that you could make a lot of money. It was hard work, but you made money. $5-6 an hour, then who are we talking about here? So it's not simple.
Well, Catherine, if you could mention that one, you need to have a panel and you need to have some other people in here. There's one number I'm just going to say that in my opinion just drives the whole thing about demand and supply and productivity in this economy. We have 800 plus construction licenses. Go to the Trade and Business Licensing Board and you'll see the statistics.
So there's another issue.
I mean, come on.
There's another issue.
There's where the $5 an hour come from.
Okay.
People who are labor brokers only, they're not proper contractors. They're simply farming people out. They skim and get $2-3 an hour. They're happy. They don't have to do any work. And these guys are allowed to float from job site to job site. That is an issue, and how some of them got grandfathered in under this bill, because I believe that we need to regulate the bill. But Mr. Bush can tell you one of the vexing points that caused us not to bring the builder's bill to the House was grandfathering in, because we felt as though there should have been a test put to ensure that we didn't just grandfather in 600 and something when we know a lot of them were not what we think of as contractors, right? Ralston England owning the construction, going and getting a construction T&B with 5 work permits. That doesn't make me a contractor. That doesn't make me a builder. but that's what we have prevalently out there that is killing that industry.
Okay.
However, let's talk about the legal practitioners bill. Section 34, Catherine,
Right.
deals with another provision that is causing a lot of anxiety, which is this whole issue of probationary lawyers. Again, that's another area that government has got to sit down with the opposition, independent members, and come up with a regime that is going to be satisfactory before the bill can be accepted. When we look at limited admissions in Section 36, again, real risks. How is that going to cause a lot of knowledge that could be opportunity for Caymanians to learn and grow their skills? Could that cause them to not get those opportunities and be able to grow professionally and be competent to really say, I am now ready to be an equity partner in this firm?
Right.
So I could go on and on about there's as I said, there's about 10 provisions in this bill that need further work. That's the reason we've said, let's deal with this December the 1st. Let's work hard in October and November and see if government will sit down and be willing to make some critical amendments so that we can get a piece of legislation that the majority members of the Legislative Assembly, more than just the 9 that Mr. McLaughlin currently has, a bigger majority can get behind the bill and say that they will support it.
Well, and as I said earlier, there's a lot to look at one time. So
there's a lot. The bill you're talking about, or different issues?
No, just different issues.
Yeah. Well, this bill is important. We need to do something, and I am in support of the bill in many instances. But there are areas that cannot be supported.
Right.
And some of them are so significant that you then can't, because a lot of times, as Mr. Bush has alluded to, a lot of times you will see a bill that you're not 100% happy with, but in the mean you're happy with it, and the major provisions of it are satisfactory, so you can say, you know what, I can vote yes.
Right.
But in this instance, there are too many critical points.
Okay.
Critical points.
We're going to take a quick break.
One thing with that, and I know she needs to break, but what is in it, and perhaps this goes throughout in the various legal fraternities in various countries, but they're saying that let's say you can't start a law firm. You're not a lawyer, but you can get you could get a business and start a law firm and get your lawyers, right? And because you can't do it because you're not a lawyer,
right?
But they're saying that you can't do that.
Okay.
But yet. You can't even start a law firm, not do law because you couldn't, right? But you can't even start the business. But yet they can go sell insurance. They can go and sell real estate.
Okay, that's a great point.
They can go sell real estate.
Let's take a break, but we'll come back and talk about that because that's a great point. Stay tuned for more For the Record. And welcome back to For the Record. Catherine Tyson, I'm sitting in for Mr. Art Connor this morning and sitting with the Leader of Opposition, Mr. McKeeva Bush, as well as Ralston Anglin. We do have some callers on the line, so we'll go straight to the phone, gentlemen. Good morning. You're on For the Record.
Good morning, Catherine. And good morning to the gentleman.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
And thank you very much for hosting the show. I'd like, first of all, to congratulate Mr. Marco Archer, who has been named the Caribbean Finance Minister of the Year. I think it is well deserved, and it proves once again that the country is in good hands under the Minister of Finance and Economic Development. I agree with the statement made by the Honorable Premier, Mr. Alden McLaughlin, when he mentioned that this was not only showing a great deal of confidence in the minister, but for his achievements, but it also was particularly important to mention that it meant a lot for his family, for the government, and the and the country as a whole. So this was no simple award. I noticed that the global markets online magazine, and this came from one of the newspapers, that Mr. Archer was featured in the article, and it discussed the exemplary show of fiscal discipline. I'd like to emphasize that word, exemplary show of fiscal discipline. And the article provided information on the formation and imposition of the framework for fiscal responsibility by the UK, which was signed into law in 2012, requiring the Cayman Islands to gain UK government approval of the budget before it could be debated in the House.
You know where that was, though, right?
No, but...
Oh, yes. The part that you are lauding is the one that caused our Fiscal Responsibility Act.
Actually, Mr. Bush, respectfully, when I'm through, because I don't want to be cut off, but once I'm through, I will respectfully listen to what you have to say.
Well,
so
I would like for you to talk about what we talked about this morning.
No, but can you make your notes, because I think it is timely, and it is important that I congratulate the Minister of Finance.
Well, we all congratulate him, but the facts need to be told about certain magazines that you advertise in,
No, that's correct. But it goes on to state that Mr. Marco had only 3 years to comply with the framework to meet the targets for cash reserves, the net debt, and debt service. So all I'm saying is, this is teamwork in the best form. The Honorable Alden McLaughlin was eager to not only congratulate Mr. Archer, but he went on to say that it shows the confidence that the United Kingdom government and other entities around the world. I mean, the RBC Caribbean economist Maria Ducardran, she quoted in their article saying that Minister Archer's achievement makes him the most impressive finance minister in the Caribbean. And she expressed that the fact that the cash reserve ratio is well above the 90-day coverage target. The islands are heading towards zero borrowing, and growth has increased from 2% to 2.4% at the start of the year, while expenditure and debt are down. And that's a particularly significant achievement in the Caribbean. So all I'm saying, sir, is that when we realize that this is what the government has achieved in just over 3 years, or say 3.5 years, and what they were faced with when they
what were they faced with,
were
caller?
elected.
And what were they faced with?
You know, I've listened to the political campaign ad, right? And I'm usually a very tolerant and patient person on this show. This country had a $63 million surplus as of June the 30th, 2013, when they took office. This government continued a tax regime that the current premier said was going to have a chilling effect on the economy, and it is that tax regime that has produced the cash to pay down debt and the cash reserves. There's been no new work done.
That was the 2012 budget. It was the 2012 budget.
This was work that was done and put in place. I want the government to point out one initiative coming out of that portfolio and that ministry that caused any of this to happen. This was what was found. You know, let's just cut to the chase and talk about the facts.
And I want to thank that caller for the...
But I want to say something here. When you advertise, Minister of Finance particularly, and any ministry, and any part of the government, and when you advertise in the periodicals, that's what they do. They write stories for you and give you
awards.
Awards.
When it's the Financial Times or Wall Street Journal that start doing something like that, then I'm going to clap and cheer. These periodicals are for sale. Let's just cut to the chase.
There are magazines that I know, because I had them as Minister of Finance that came to me. People want to write a book, and they say, well, you advertise, it costs you $50,000 for like a full story, maybe 2 pages. That's how things go. But I didn't do any of it. I didn't do any of that. You know what McKeown Bush done? I want to tell Daphne what McKeown Bush done. I took the licks in 2012 to create the budget and raise the fees that created the revenue that we have now. The PPM did not create any fees, and so you can have money if you don't help your children. If your children gonna be starving, if you can't have toilet paper and paper toweling in the schools, and you can't have copy paper for the students, not the teachers, you can save your money. If you don't pay your mortgage, and you don't pay your bills, you can have money. You can have money, especially money that somebody else made.
What a great point. We have some more calls. We'll go to the phone. Good morning. You're on For the Record.
Daphne, I would need to stop.
Hello?
I would say to her, don't call in on the show when I'm here to advertise for the PPM. We know what the PPM has done for her. She knows. I know. They never come out and say so. They gave her $1,000 a month in the budget. Nobody else came out and got anything. Okay?
All right. We're going to go to the phones again. Good morning, caller. You're on For the Record.
Hello? Good morning. Hello, Ms. Tyson?
Yes?
How are you?
Good morning. Good.
Mr. Bush?
Morning.
I hear you. Mr. England?
Good morning, sir.
Yeah, what happened? Mr. Bush, you just take out some of what I had to say out of my mouth because they're cutting the labor for the garbage truck when they used to pick up 4 or 5 times a week.
Correct.
Picking up to twice a week.
Correct.
They ain't cleaning. They ain't cleaning the schools the way they used to clean them.
Of course not.
So if you don't pay your bills, you got money.
That's right. Especially
Simple as
when
that.
somebody else made it.
But you know what I'm saying about the labor there, Mr. England. In the 80s, when I used to do construction, I was making $10 and $12 an hour. That was
That's
in
right.
the 80s.
Right.
That's right.
And right now, we are in 2016. We're supposed to be making more instead of less.
That's right.
I do not understand what causes this. Can somebody explain an uneducated person how is this now $6 hour, $5 hour? Then there's nobody that used to make $5 hour.
That's
Right.
right.
$8 upward.
And
Right.
sir, the reality, and all we have to do is point to one statistic. I can venture to bet. I don't have the information in front of me, but I can venture. All of us can venture to make an educated bet that there was not anywhere near 800 construction, trade, and business licenses in the 80s. That's the issue. The issue in the white elephant in the room, and this government refused to deal with it, and they passed the builder's bill without adequately addressing the whole oversupply and having so many people who are not contractors in the sector, who only are labor brokers, and all they're doing is importing cheap labor and pushing down wages for Caymanians.
So there needs to be a standard set, and I think across the board we talked about that during the commercial. But that here's another area, because you made a great point about, you know, in the 80s you were making 10 to 12, and I comment about, you know, working as a teenager making $5 an hour, and the same place, exact same place, is paying, you know, workers that same $5 an hour some 20, 30 years later. So, or 30 something years later, which is, you know, very interesting. So I think that we really do have to look at some of these things. There's so many things that have to be addressed. So you're right. And that's why I said Mr. Bush made a great point. You can have a lot of money if you don't pay. If I didn't pay my mortgage, I could travel. I could do all kinds of good stuff because, you know, I make a choice every month to pay this mortgage.
And
but you're absolutely right.
The caller made an important point. You know, your garbage used to be picked up.
Right, so you're saving money. In other words, just
And they can say that's being frugal, but the country's not getting the services.
Well,
They can say being frugal and-
is one thing, but is it a frugality that is causing us another adverse effect?
Yeah. And I'm not saying
That's
anything
what's
about
important.
Marco's
Right.
award.
'Cause you don't
And
want to take away an
No.
accolade.
If somebody, but as I said, in any of these periodicals, look, you advertise. I know that I was asked, and I would have got a big full story in it, and I said, it was simply we didn't have the money, you know.
Right.
We didn't have the money to pay, you know, $7,000, $8,000 a page, and I know in tourism, it's done the same thing. You want to carry a particular line, you pay.
Right. So to go back to the accolade then, and to congratulate a fellow Caymanian, could it also be that the situation is as it is? Ralston, you talked about the surplus and the what was found when in 2013. Could it also be though that there is an opportunity to appreciate very much what the financial minister has brought to the table or can bring to the table? You see what I mean? Like, not necessarily that, because we don't want to take away from a fellow Caymanian that
No,
that
we're
has
not
done
talking
something
about
great.
award. I'm talking about the conditions that exist in the
Exactly.
country.
But what I'm saying is also we're talking about maybe a skill set, right? Because I'm always let's all work together type of thing. So I always want to be fair to say, hey, you know what? If that's your skill set and you're good at that, then quite possibly in another instance you could still be good at that as well. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I understand
Ralston?
exactly what
Okay.
you're saying,
Okay.
Catherine. I just like the facts. I'm a plain vanilla type of guy. We were forced to implement because of the conditions. I sat in cabinet, I sat in the Legislative Assembly, and I know sometimes people forget, so let me repeat it, and I'll say it here again. That tax package was one of the most unfortunate things that I felt I had to do as a legislator.
We said so.
You think I felt good going down to the Legislative Assembly with those fees that we had to charge, knowing that a lot of them were going to put us in a globally uncompetitive compared to our jurisdictions? We're twice as expensive in some of our fees.
Right.
Right? Okay?
Right.
That didn't feel good. The current premier, who is leader of the opposition, in the Legislative Assembly, and I said it about 2-3 months ago when we were on here and we were debating the budget, I quoted the Hansards. He said, this budget is going to have a chilling effect throughout the economy. They've raised taxes. However, it's going to chase away business, so we're not going to achieve the revenue they're projecting, was what he said. A year later, they got elected. 3 years later now, he's riding the high, and they're seeing all the cash come in, and they haven't repealed in any marginal way any of those taxes on financial services.
Okay.
In fact, what the next administration needs to do, Catherine, because we need to talk about what is going to be necessary for Cayman and Caymanians
Right.
to be successful.
Right.
We need to get to the point where, firstly, in our opinion, there should be no taxes on foodstuffs. Foodstuffs is the staple of life.
Right.
And whether you're poor or rich, right now in this country, people are going and paying the same tax on their food bill.
Right.
The same tax dollar, but the
Right.
tax percentage is disproportionately more for a person who is poorer and earning less.
Absolutely.
And they still have to survive.
Right.
We also have to put in place mechanisms to ensure that those savings get passed on to our consumers.
Right.
And I'll leave that right there, because regimes are going to be put in place, in my opinion, if people behave badly. Right now, this
Okay.
government passed on savings to people who import building supplies. Not criticizing any of those businesses, but people tell me that are in the industry that they haven't seen any big savings passed on to them.
Right. So it should
So-
be one hand washes another.
Right. So it's no sense government giving up revenue if it's not,
it's not going to affect.
impact the person, Caymanians. And so we need to have put in place the type of tax breaks that's going to be across the board and into our homes,
Right.
in particular the homes of our at-risk families and our at-risk children.
Right. Absolutely.
That is where our support efforts need to be, while balancing that with what Mr. Bush has talked about, and that we are committed to growing the economy sensibly and ensuring that on the labor end, Caymanians are given every opportunity to maximize their potential.
I tell you what, Ralston, I can tell you, hosting this show is quite interesting. I enjoy it, but when you're in, I gotta be on my toes, and it's honestly, you give a lot of food for thought, a lot of great points. I'm
Because
really,
that's what the next administration is going to bring, and myself and Mr. Bush are, God's willing, going to be a part of that.
We
God's
have
willing.
was that an advertisement? We have some callers. We're going to go to the phones.
said
We're going
that
to
from
ask
the
you to be
cheek.
brief because there's a few callers waiting. So caller, please be brief. Welcome, and you're on For the Record. Good morning.
Good morning, Ms. Tyson. This is Johan Moxham. Good morning to Mr.
Good
Bush.
morning.
Good
And
morning.
good morning to Mr. Anglin. Always interesting when you guys are in studio to give the other side of the coin. Again, just to talk about the state of the economy and why perhaps things are going so well. Mr. Anglin mentioned that he just wants the facts. Well, here are the facts. Successive governments help to contribute greatly to the situation whereby the only good thing, in my opinion, that has been done by the FCO office for the Cayman Islands is demanding that the framework for fiscal responsibility was implemented. So I don't think anybody can take credit for something that was mandated by law by the UK. So we can pay for awards and we can pay for publications. I think it's really good that Cayman is getting some positive PR in that light. But once you cut through all the bush and all of the fluff, you will understand that the framework for fiscal responsibility is largely responsible for why we are where we are.
Mr. Moxham, can I just interject one point?
Yes,
The framework for fiscal responsibility was not because of successive administration. It was because
That's your
of,
opinion, Mr. Anglin.
Right, in my opinion, and let's get to the facts of that. The first record deficit in this country was 55 million when we took over government in 2001 from Mr. Kurt Tibbetts. The largest deficit in the country's history was 80 million after we took government in 2009 from Mr. Tibbetts / McLaughlin. So I'm just saying that it was those two events that caused the FFR to have to be implemented, and each time we had to come on the tail end and clean it up with tax packages.
No, I think that's part of it, but there were legitimate concerns about procurement, and the procurement aspect does make up a large part of what the FFR is about or stands for. So I don't think we can say that this is solely a red team issue. Successive governments, in my opinion, you have yours. At the end of the day,
Sure.
Your job is to sell the good parts of what you guys did, but the country and collectively our leaders helped us get to that point. And as I said, the only good thing that has been done by the FCO in the last 25 years is demanding the implementation of the FFR. But moving away from that, I just wanted to press on something that you were saying earlier, Mr. Anglin. Having been a Minister for Education and Labour, and the way things are going now, I think you stand a very good chance of winning your seat if you do run head-to-head with or against the current Minister of Labour and Education. You spoke earlier about changing the system whereby things like job ads and the outsourcing of work in the Cayman Islands is being done to other jurisdictions, but ads were being placed all over the world, and ads were being very specialized for particular individuals. Given the fact that you've served in that capacity, could you please delve down a little bit more as to precisely what you think the solution should be and what exactly will be done if you and Mr. Bush are successful in becoming leaders of the next government? Because, people need to move past the fluff of campaigning and politics. All of the ads are campaigning to say that the red team is doing good. But when you look at how people live in this country, that's a completely different story from what we're being sold by the government. So I would hope that, and I'm going to personally press everybody who is on radio or takes a public position for specific solutions in certain scenarios, because employment, training, development, and education are the only chances that this current set of Caymanians has, and also future generations of Caymanians. But we've done a poor job of being specific enough and protecting the rights of Caymanians, because I'm struggling to understand how a government who advocate for openness and more people and less bureaucracy so that businesses are encouraged to come to Cayman will now have the courage to say, oh, but by the way, we need to ensure that every Caymanian gets a chance and every Caymanian gets employed, because those are two contradictory sort of philosophies. When you tell somebody to come to the country and we would encourage you and we're going to remove a lot of the bureaucracy and hassles that you've had previously, there is no incentive at that stage for those businesses, especially in the financial services industry, to commit to the Caymanian labor force because they feel that they've been promised certain things, and then again, Caymanians are getting the short end of the stick. So I just want to understand what you think are low-hanging fruit, sustainable solutions so that we can help our people, because everybody talks about helping everybody else, but Caymanian people are becoming more disenfranchised by the day in every single sector of society. The financial services industry should have no more privileges than any other sector of the Cayman Islands, and I understand and I appreciate that it makes up 56% of the GDP, but when Caymanians are struggling, and when you have Caymanians that come back from university and they can't get off of mom and dad's couch because they can't get an interview, yet they have a degree that the government has helped sponsored and paid for, but they can't get work. It's a recipe for disaster that has been happening for 25, 30, 40 years. And I'm not being critical of you or Mr. Bush. I'm just saying that unless Caymanians are put first, and when I say put first, if a Caymanian can't be something in his own country, what is the point of inviting everybody else here to reap the benefits? And that is where I am patriotic. I am respectful of everybody's origin and how they do things, but this is no joke. Caymanian people are struggling.
Thank you.
But that's what we've been saying, Johan.
Thank you.
Right? That's what we've been saying, and I mean, you getting up there and not and even you could be a possible candidate, and you're not saying what your part, what you just pointing out the problem. We know the problem, right? I believe in driving business. I believe in bringing in business, but I know that there is a way to ensure Cayman. When we were in government, there were very little unemployment, and there were a lot of permits. So what has gone wrong?
Okay.
What has gone wrong?
Great. That's great. We're going to take our final break of the show, but it's hot in here, so please go nowhere. We'll be back with more For the Record. And welcome back to For the Record. Catherine Tyson, I'm sitting in for Mr. Art Connor this morning. And if you were listening, it was a lot going on. We just had a caller. We had a couple of questions and that he posed to Ralston Anglin, as well as sitting here with the Leader of Opposition, Mr. McKeeva Bush. But we do have some more callers, so we're going to go to the phones and get the callers, the last callers of the show this morning. So if you could be brief, I'm asking you to just be brief with your point. We want to get those callers in. Good morning. You're on For the Record.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning, Catherine. Morning, Mr. Bush. Morning, Mr. Anglin.
Good morning, ma'am.
Morning.
Okay. And I would ask, please, that I don't be interrupted or have any interjections until I finish, since some callers get to be as long-winded as they want and others are shut down. I would like to start out by saying I, too, would like to join one of your previous callers and saying congratulations to Minister Archer. And I'm not going to be bashful. I'm his sister. And I would like the public to know that without this award or accolade that was given to him or awarded to him recently, his family were already very proud of him. He earned that right. He didn't have to become Minister of Finance for us to be proud of him. But when that lady called in and she congratulated him, there was a comment made, which I'm listening to the show. I always listen to the show, and I would like, when I'm finished, if that could be clarified for me, because based on what was said, I am walking away with the interpretation that this award was given merely because the government subscribes to this magazine and the awards are given to the highest bidder. Now, I know it was not said in those words, but that's my understanding. So I would like if that could be clarified. And if that is not the case, then since your two guests seem to be very familiar with how these awards are given, then tell us, the listening public, how do you get considered for such an award? Not just for Minister of Finance, but for any office that one might hold in the Caribbean. Let us not even concentrate on Cayman. Let's do it on the Caribbean as a whole, since he was given the Minister of Finance award for the Caribbean. And again, I'd like to say congratulations to my baby brother, whom has made us very proud. And I say that with a lot of emotion behind it. And I don't know if he's listening or not, but he knows that we love him and that we are very proud of him. And even if he's not Minister of Finance come next election, we are still proud of him. He's earned that.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful day and a wonderful weekend.
Thank you. And thank you so much for that call this morning.
We don't know. We don't know what government did or didn't do. What I said was, I know that because I was Minister of Tourism several times, and when I was Minister of Finance, that I had similar proposals, but we didn't have money to advertise like that, and certainly I don't believe in it. I didn't take it up. I don't believe in it. Okay, that's all I'm saying.
Yeah, and I think what I had said earlier too is we don't want to take away any accolades from
No, we don't. No, of course not.
That obviously, I think Ralston, you mentioned that it does look good for us anyway.
Yes.
And we should be proud of our fellow Caymanians and celebrate one another.
I don't put down no Caymanian to get anything, anything they can get. Once it's done right, then I help Caymanians get training.
Right.
As minister, I take the licks for giving people money.
Right.
To go get training so that they can become qualified in things in this country.
We want to lift each other up.
That's what McKeown Bush is about.
Another call on the line. I'm going to ask you to be brief as well. Good morning. You're on For the Record.
Good morning, Catherine, Mr. Bush, and Ralston.
Good morning. Good morning.
This is a different subject I want to speak about. You know, we got a small Cayman businessman in this island here that have worked for the government around the school grounds, preparing the school grounds for the kids to be playing on from last year, August, until this day. They will not pay that man. He took money out of his pocket to get stuff to beautify the playgrounds for the kids. And this year, nothing whatsoever have been done to the school grounds. They called them back and they told them plain and straight that they would not do any more until they was paid for the last from August. They will not do any more until they get paid. And I think it's a shame and disgrace to see a small businessman. How do government expect them to feed their family and maintain themselves if they do jobs for government and cannot get paid? It take over a year and up to now we can't get the pay.
Okay.
I think it's really ridiculous and nasty. Okay. Anyway, you all have a good weekend.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll still be listening to you all.
And thank you for that call. Obviously, there are probably some details that need to be discussed, and obviously, it's something that if you do the work, you should be paid. I know for a fact that government has certain requirements that you have to go through before, because I've done work for government as well. So those are some of the things I think that we definitely have to look into. There's always the requirements. We do have is it the last call of the morning? Yes. So we're going to go to the phones again. Good morning. We're going to ask you to be brief. You're on For the Record.
Good morning again, Catherine. I was cut off in mid-sentence, so may I complete the sentence, hopefully without interruption this time. Whether or not you agree with what I say, I think I should be accorded the same privileges as someone who calls in and can continue to talk as long as he or she wants without being interrupted, or certainly at least not being cut off in mid-sentence. So I would like to just simply say here that Mr. Archer pointed out something which is very important in any government. When he was asked by the global capital how Cayman had accomplished the feat, and I want you to notice the words that were used, the feat of significantly reducing expenditure and debt, Minister Archer responded by stating that the government found. He didn't say I found. the government found that the best way to reduce debt was to grow the economy. Now, the Premier also continued in his statement that while not everything is perfect, and while there is yet more to be done, that the country is better off financially, economically, and socially than 3 years ago, and he congratulated his minister. All I am saying is it takes teamwork to run a government, and when you are going to Mr. McLaughlin's, the Honourable Premier's credit, he knew who had the qualifications to take over that, or at least to best take over that position. And I would like to say that Mr. Archer, his hard-working team, supported by the government of the day, who works together as a team, are getting things done. And anyone who cares to look and state the facts, as Mr. Anglin has so carefully said this morning that he likes to state the facts. But let's state the facts. This country is better off financially, economically, socially, in every respect. I did not vote for the lady who sits there in the ministry, in the government now. I did not vote for her last time, but I have to congratulate her for standing shoulder to shoulder with her other colleagues in government, and she has tackled some subjects and situations which she should be applauded for, and she has been successful in everything, not necessarily, but I can tell you she went to it and she got it done. Things that no other government seemed to want to touch, this government has done it, continues to do it, and I would suggest
like paying you $1,000 a month.
Who sit there, and I will close with this, Mr. Bush. For the record, what I am saying on this radio station, I am not being paid by the progressive government to say so.
No, they simply put it in the budget, and you got it above anybody else. $1,000 a month, a whole year. You got it for what? Above anybody else, Daphne Orrit. You got it above anybody else.
I don't go into the gutter with you or anyone else.
It's not a gutter. That's our money. If you, seem as you want to blame McKeever Bush for everything, and you come in here with your political speeches, I like objective calls. That's what we're here for. But political callers, as you have been, every time you come on here, I have less time for, and I have less tolerance for it.
Okay. I want to thank you again for that call. One thing I do want to clear up is that it's not whether I agree with the caller or not, because I am sitting in a very neutral seat. So the caller, when you first came on, you mentioned whether I agree or not that you'll be cut off. Please, that is a complete misconception. It is not whether I agree or not. And I need to clear that up because it's very important for me. I'm a very fair person. You call in, you're allowed to say whatever you want to say. I ask you to be brief because of time constraints. I do have the opposition in one day. I have the government in another day, as Mr. Connor does on his show, and to give everybody their opportunity to speak. I also have a control room that tells me when it's time to go to another call or go to a break. So please, I will not accept that it's whether I agree or not. So I want to clear that up. By the way, I am in agreement with teamwork. I'm in agreement with teamwork. So I want to thank all the calls this morning. I think one of the calls did pose a question, and I think I will bring in Ralston Anglin to maybe give us some suggestions about sustainable solutions, low-hanging fruit. Let's talk about that as we close the show today.
Well,
on a hot high.
Look, Catherine, listen, okay? We're all adults. I can tell the world, I can tell this country, on a personal level, I love the Archers, love Marco Archer. Him and Tammy are godparents of my eldest daughter, Cheryl. I stick with the facts. The magazine, for example, let me give you an example, said that expenditure was down. The budget that was presented this year shows expenditure is up. It also shows that the surplus went from 149 million 2 years ago, projected to fell on June of this year to 140 million, and the 12-month comparative for 2017, June the 30th, it was going to fall to 82 million. Now, whether people like that or not is their issue. I am here to make sure that what is before me is presented.
Okay.
Plain and simple. That's not to rain on anybody's parade.
Right, because we don't want it to appear as if we've taken away an accolade of a fellow Caymanian.
The accolade is accolade. I'm just pointing out.
So let's talk about sustainable solutions and low-hanging fruits.
And so, sustainable solutions and low-hanging fruit. Mr. Moxon brought up some very good points. I must say that I don't agree with him that saying that you're open for business as a country and trying to drive net new business means that you have to be contradictory to the opportunities that's posed for Caymanians. No. It depends on how you implement that policy. Now, if you implement that policy the way we did, so for example, I can clearly remember in Cabinet a number of developers who came for concessions. And when they came for concessions, we put stipulations on the concessions for the minimum participation of Caymanian companies. So we said, for example, yes, we can grant the concession, but the subcontractors must be Caymanian companies, i.e. you can't just bring in other workers to do the work, or companies who are outside saying that they're specialist firms. Now, I quickly admit that the next administration is going to have to put some more resources around our inspectorate regime to ensure that developers keep their end of the bargain on those types of agreements. Because I will admit, they didn't exist then, and I dare say they don't exist now. I'm not saying that this current government have not put similar provisions in any concessions they gave. In fact, I would say I'm sure they have put similar provisions in any concession packages they've put together. Now, when it comes to how is it that we drill down and try to ensure that Caymanians are given the opportunities, the point that I keep raising just around the construction industry and the number of licenses, trade and business licenses in the sector, is that I want to talk about the issue. If we keep talking about, we're not getting people jobs without going to the root cause, and the root cause are the number of licenses and the number of people who have been grandfathered in and are sitting there adding no real value and stripping down jobs from Caymanians and lowering the hour per rate that Caymanians can make. And there are own Caymanians doing it. Let's call a spade a spade. And if the next administration is not going to be willing to address that vexing issue and the vexing issue of people being able to float from job to job in the construction industry, we're going to be here 4 years later arguing about the same thing. We have to understand how many people in construction are out of work.
Right.
Or not only out of work, are underemployed, i.e. they should be getting more hours or certainly more per hour. And it's a vexing issue that we're going to have to tackle. And nothing has been done. The builder's bill, something had to be done, I agree, but grandfathering in those massive numbers was not the right approach, and it was the single reason we couldn't get agreement in our cabinet. And Mr. Bush can tell you that was the issue that we could not agree on. Now, as it relates overall, we have to continue the policy that we started. If you're coming in to Cayman, it is very clear what the expectations must be in financial services in particular. If you're having a net new shop coming in and they want a work permit for who's going to be their managing director on the ground, that's a lot of times something you can give. But you then can't just say that you're going to give on who's going to be their financial controller, who's going to be their administrators, and all of the other professional and administrative jobs. We must be clear that we have talent here, and we must ensure that that talent can be put back to work, because we have a lot of people in that sector. The downsizing of HSBC is one. I know that there's still people who are working there who are out of work to this very day. And they're good, solid Caymanians. It's not talking about anybody who isn't ready for work. These are people who are ready for work and who were working and making good pays.
All I can say as I sit here and look at you, well, sounds like Raleigh is back. Where you been all these years? You went quiet for a bit there, huh? We got a final caller. We're going to go to the phones again. Final caller of the show. Please be brief. Good morning. You're on For the Record.
Good morning. I don't know if I can be brief. Good morning, Mr. Bush.
Good morning.
Good morning.
And good
to
morning,
you.
Mr. Ralston.
Good morning, sir.
A few topics I'm going to hit on here. Marco Archer. I am extremely proud of him and his accomplishments and what he did. I think we as Caymanians, we have to build each other up, big each other up, no matter what side of the fence we're on. We have to look at it on a whole and congratulate our Caymanians, because I feel what not congratulating us and bigging us up is like. I'm going through it right now. Concessions. I told you I'm going to be brief. Concessions.
Okay.
Mr. Ralston, concession was given to these developers and investors, but when you tell them that they must try their hardest best to employ Caymanians, right? And then you turn, and this is the construction industry I'm speaking of, then you're going to turn around, the same government is going to turn around and give foreign entities or foreign immigrants or whatever a piece of paper and call them Caymanians. Now, you speak of Caymanians having these jobs. The people that have these jobs mostly at DART development are new immigrants with a piece of paper called Cayman. So we as a Cayman can't complain, because you always say, well, they're Cayman also. Forget, building builder's license. The building license, yes, we've gotten it, and I don't agree with what they have done, because what they have done, there's a clause in there that still gives a foreign contractor or a foreign person to qualify a Caymanian company. My friend, that is the same thing we got now as front-end. And I don't know who put that in that law or in the regulation, because I know that I was on the committee, a subcommittee, and I know there were meetings that I were not invited when they were finalizing this bill. And I think I know why I was not invited, because I would never sit and let that happen to my people, because we have a lot of Caymanians, Peter Thompson, Bunny, Vincent Tibbetts, Raven McLaughlin, I could name a whole bunch more, that out here without a job because of those same licenses that are given and continue to be given. And the investors, yes, we know investors have done great for this country, but they have to know their place, and we have to stop giving them the LCCL license. I heard a debate last night on the radio with the lawyers, the practitioners bill, where they're exempted from the LCCL license. I don't know why, but I don't like it. I mean, we know that right now what I'm seeing advertised in the paper is people coming in to build homes are looking for LCCL license. They are now circumventing the construction industry, or they're circumventing the builder's bill, they're circumventing the license for a contractor. They can come in here, once they get that LCCL license, they go downtown, they submit their plans, they open an account, and they build their home. That's not doing justice to Caymanian builders.
Okay.
It's not.
Thank you.
For listening to me. Thank you for giving me time, Catherine.
Thank you.
You all have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Thank
so
you very
much.
much. Thank you. Very, very, very interesting. Very good call. The last point is certainly one I've put 3 asterisks next to, because that would be obviously, in my opinion, a real circumvention and misuse of LCCLs for building a home. That's
I don't know why they would want it.
well, then they shouldn't be qualified. I mean, an LCCL should be about a business opportunity that you then go and advertise for Cayman participation in the business venture. And if you don't get a qualified person who can put up whatever the amount of money is that is required, then you're granted the license, because there's an advertising regime that's attached to an LCCL. So I've put 3 asterisks next to that one, because I want to check that, because if it's allowed, I'd agree completely with the caller that it shouldn't be allowed.
Right. Okay, gentlemen, final points of this show. We'll start with Ralston and end with Mr. Bush.
Okay, well, Catherine, thank you all. It's been another interesting show. I think in all this, the thing that we have to take away from it is that there are always going to be another view. And it's all about how we morph all of our views and hopefully come up with what is going to be a government that is going to deliver what is critically important for this country.
Right.
That is going to listen, is going to work hard, because we do have a number of vexing issues that have been outstanding way too long. Let me just use one example. This job advertisement issue. You know, we've really been talking about this a little too long, and I put my hand up. I was there, and we didn't fix it.
Right.
But we can't continue talking about that. However, I got a message when I was on here that I thought would be an equal, just a very good way to wrap up in a caller's. This is taking a caller's perspective in wrapping up the show. I just tuned into the talk show, and one of the things that I wanted to say to you guys is to start talking about not only what you're going to continue doing, but let the public know what you plan to do and how you plan to undo the negative things the PPM has allowed, rather than continuously pointing the finger of what they've done. And I agree.
Right.
Yes, we all know that they have the absolute worst government. But what will you do as a government to make things better as far as the dump and the proposed solution? Will this be a solution we see materialize, and for how long and for approximately what time frame? Education and installing a curriculum that educates students about Cayman, Cayman's heroes, Cayman's culture, and contributions to the global scene. Immigration and work permits. Certainty for jobs. Certainty for small businesses and supporting small business. Healthcare availability for the unemployed, the elderly, and high-risk individuals. The pension regime that's not working at all. And so as I read this, what it just reminded me of, and if we think about the last 3 months that we've been on the show together, those are the vexing points that continue to be the central focus of what people, Caymanians, ordinary Caymanians, are feeling out there, and what we have been putting forward as some of our proposed solutions. I just want to end by wishing everyone a safe weekend. I want to congratulate my friend, the Honorable Minister of Finance, Mr. Marco Archer, on his award. I wish him and his family well and wish him continued health and continued success. I can just say that we are going to ensure that we continue to put forward a voice that is going to be balanced, that is going to be fair to all, but most importantly, it records the record, not just conjecture and just repeating what others have said. As far as the legal practitioners bill and some of these other important pieces of legislation, I stand with Mr. Bush. We cannot rush that piece of legislation. It is too important, and there are too many areas that have to be thrashed out and improved from the current draft before it should be supported.
Thank you so much for that. Mr. Bush?
Catherine, I'll go back to where I started. Our world is being reformed, and I speak from our manifesto. And Cayman is being shaped by the global changes, impacting nearly every aspect of life in this country. But those particular changes that are dramatic advances in ideas, technology, and science, and it's at a pace that perhaps the world never experienced before. And so our party's approach to what we see as a changing world will continue to be an active and creative one. And while the CDP government will seek to embrace the beneficial changes of a knowledge-based society, it is central to our values that we will and must ensure all Caymanians have equal access to those opportunities and benefits, and we must prepare our people to do that. Recently, the world economies were on an upswing, and so our economy here benefited. But without the plans, I want to tell Daphne and anybody else, the plans and projects supported and put forward by my government, where would we be with what little we have had these past 3 years? Where would we be? Without the revenue I put through the increased fees in the financial industry in the 2012 budget. What surplus would we have to brag about or to do anything with? This government did not put any fees there. They criticized me for it. And including that caller was part and parcel of doing that. So, as a government, we will continue to do the right things when it's necessary for the country. By now, the truth is we were supposed to have reduced some of those fees because we had to take us through. We had to follow the UK line of bringing us back into line. And so we started on that trajectory and put in the right fees to make it happen. We knew the budget that we put in place. We knew that, but it was projected that by now, this year, we would be coming off the UK hands, which the PPM put us into. We were never there in our 180 odd years of parliamentary governance. We were not there. The PPM in 2005 to 2009 created the expenditure, the gross mismanagement and some of the things that went on. The piles of marl are still there. You don't hear anything about that. And so they make the side shots that I'm not I wasn't qualified to be a Minister of Finance. No, I didn't go to the university to be it. I had good common sense. I knew that we couldn't spend the money if we didn't have it. I had good common sense that if I found the country in a mess, I could not allow the country to go belly up. And that's what was going to happen if we did not put the fees in place. And that's what created. I knew that we would not have anything if we didn't go to the world and tell them Cayman is open for business. And yes, the permits were there. We found permits there when we took over in 2009. But we gave, where jobs start to slide, we found employment. We helped Caymanians to try to save the houses. If they didn't, then I couldn't do no more but to try to help them. I saw Caymanians that needed scholarships. Ralston increased the scholarships. I put other things in place to help those that were not reaching that level. So we did the things necessary to help the country at the time. Now they mightn't like me, and they might and they will make fun of the fact that I don't have a degree, but I know I have common sense. I have common sense, and I know when people are hurting and when people need to be helped. I know when the country's in a bad shape. I know that we have nothing, no matter how much we get up and scream and talk about we Caymanians. That's a good thing. I'm a Caymanian, and I would forever be one. But I know this, that we have nothing here unless we have outside investment. And we have to make the place palatable for that. At the same time, we have to find the policies to ensure that our people have benefited as we have done in the past. Things have shifted. The world has shifted. People's ideas have shifted. Money has shifted. Investment have shifted. We now need to shift our ideas. We get investors, but we make sure that Caymanians are benefiting. And that's what McKeever Bush is about, and that's what the Cayman Democratic Party is all about.
Thank you so much, Mr. Bush. That was the leader of opposition, McKeever Bush's voice you just heard, as well as Ralston Anglin's. I want to thank you for tuning in this morning. We've heard it this week. We had the government in on Monday with the premier. We had independents in on Wednesday, and we've had the opposition in today. So it's been a week of information. I would always just urge people to use their brains, right, to think about things. My guest today mentioned memories are short, and so maybe we should go back into our memory banks and find out. It's less about pointing fingers and more about figuring out, what it is that's going to benefit the country on a whole. It's more about pointing to solutions, less about pointing to problems. As we said, we all know the problems, so what are the solutions? It's a crucial time for us, and I think we all need to be on board, all hands on deck, as they say. I think we're all in agreement with one thing, and that is teamwork. We need to work together and not just spend a lot of time tearing each other down, but work together to find some solutions that will benefit our country on a whole. Thank you all so much, callers, for being so active this morning and making this show a little easier to do. Thank you for having me, and I look forward to being asked again at some point. Mr. Connor will be back with you on Monday. You have a great weekend. Be safe. Take care of yourselves, and remember to get some rest and value every moment.
And I want to say something, Catherine, if I give me one last minute.
Okay.
Just in case anybody is saying that I'm not agreeing with Marco's whatever it is he got, that's not so. Anything, if he's praised, he's praised. All I said was that I knew and I want to repeat that because someone just asked me again. I want to repeat that, and thanks for giving me that time. When I was minister, there are periodicals and magazines that come to you and say, you can advertise, and we can do like an advertorial for you. And so they say what you want to say, but you got to pay for that. And I didn't do that.
Right. And we don't know if that's what happened either.
No,
right?
That's what I said. I don't know what happened here.
Right.
This magazine is not something that I hear about often. Or this periodical.
Right.
It's not a Financial Times or something like that, Right. But it's like or the big dive magazines, which we would have had to deal with in tourism. There are big dive magazines. They're top. And those are people that come to you and say, we can do advertorials, but you got to pay for that.
Right.
They give you front page coverage.
Right. But we do want to say congratulations to our fellow Caymanian, the finance minister. And thank you all so much again.
Say so again, if it's necessary.
Thank you so much for joining me this morning. You have a great weekend.